Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You know, I'll keep doing this and get it right. Good morning.
Good morning.
So much better. It is a good morning. It's March. Winter is starting to come to its glorious end. And transformation is just around the corner. When spring comes alive, everybody improves their mood. We get excited with the things we're going to be doing. But today we're going to be exciting about talking about spiritual or spiritualist education. It's the theme of the month, and we're very happy to have Denise opening up the theme just before we all go into our delicious lunch and learn. Welcome everyone that's on the Facebook watching us live, or maybe later on a recorded version. Sorry, you won't be able to have the feijoada. Well, let's get started. I would ask Erica to come here to have a short reading and then the initial prayer. And then Denise will come up and deliver us the lecture around Spiritism, faith, science, or philosophy. And there's an option D that she hasn't put out there.
Good morning. So, a reading from Happy Life, developed by Joanna De Angelis. Some people cultivate truth and make it a weapon to attack others. The truth, however, is a wondrous light, dispeller of darkness that never wounds or afflicts. It is like bread, which should be eaten without excess, or like lymph, which needs to be absorbed in the exact quantity necessary. While truth nourishes and slakes the thirst, it calms and makes happy, thus enriching with understanding and affability the person who penetrates it. Never apply truth with harshness, as if it were a weapon to destroy others. When this happens, it loses its main purpose, which is to liberate. Let's close our eyes, trying to focus on what we are going to do today. Let's forget all of our problems, all of our tasks, all of our duties outside from here. And let's now open our hearts and minds to the lesson Denise is going to teach us here today. Let's ask our spiritual friends and God and Jesus to guide her on the right path and guide us too, so that we can understand those teachings better and then apply afterwards in our lives. Let's all thank God for the opportunity to be here and ask Him to protect those who couldn't make it today. Let's hope they can have all the good vibrations, all the good feelings, and at least part of the teachings you're having here today. Let's enjoy with faith and love what you're about to start right now. So be it.
Thanks, Erica. Thank you, everyone. So happy to be here today. And as you can see, it's a challenge topic because it's not one lecture. It's basically 3 lectures in one. When we talk about spiritism, faith, science, or philosophy, we need really to think about these 3 concepts. And as I told, we can really have like 3 lectures in just this topic. And another challenge is because probably everybody here knows about Spiritism already, right? So it's very challenging how to keep everybody in the room and make nobody leave the room right now. Or at least not take a nap, think about the feijoada that is yet to come. So when I was reading about it, I thought, okay, how can I try to make this more appealing for them to engage with me? Like, the musical spiritism is out of the table. I don't know how to sing except in my shower moments, or for my husband and little son, they need to accept my limited skills regarding singing, but I'm not going to put anyone here under this situation. So I'd like you guys to now try to really empty your mind about everything that you know already about Spiritism. Try really to see these concepts with the Kardec's perspective. How it was in 18th century, how it was there, how he used his mind to develop and come up with the faith, the science, or philosophy, or all of the above option, as Joe was mentioning, and bring the Spiritism that we know in our days, right? So I really hope that you guys could embark on this journey with me, and let's go back to 1800 and see how it was at that time. So we need to understand a little bit about the historical context. So in 1850, there was a lot of things going on. But what they didn't have TV, they didn't have movie theaters, they didn't have social media like we have today. So what they used to do? They used to work, they used to read books, and during that time in particular, in Paris, after work, they used to go out to some neighbor's house to see some shaking tables. There was a phenomenon that was happening all around the world, and the society of Paris started to get entertained by this event of the shaking tables. So all the nobility start to enjoy in the afternoon, sit together. It was like these little tables with 3 feet of diameter that they used to sit, and these tables start to shake, and they start to make questions, and the table starts to answer in what they call a typology thing. So 1 knock for no, 2 knocks for yes. Sometimes letters was like A, 1 knock, B, 2 knocks. So it was a very boring and tedious way to do questions. So they kept doing just trivial questions. The things that were interested, they wasn't asking themselves about there's an intelligence behind that. What is causing this phenomenon? Right? Some people think there was some sort of magnetic phenomenon or some different forces that existed. They were really not think about this spiritual thing. Even the spiritualists, they start to play these games, but not in order to achieve a more enlightening concept. They're there really for the entertaining, doing the silly questions, the gossip from, let's see if the table knows. My neighbor is really cheating on his wife. These sort of questions that it's not really bringing any sort of true knowledge for them. So that is the context that everything started, right? And for another big event that happened, like these turning tables are happening everywhere, but another phenomenal fact that happened that also bring the attention from a lot of people was the Fox sisters. So they were from Hydesville in Wayne County, New York, United States of America. They lived there with the 3 daughters. They were living in the house since 1847. And on the night of March 28, they start to listen to these annoying knocks and also the sound of dragging chairs. And then these things start to escalate to a point that they couldn't sleep anymore because the sounds were very intense and all the time. The father of the girls, they were from Methodist church. So for them, this was some work of the devil. They used to call the spirit that they were talking to as Old Splitfoot, as a reference to the devil. And what happens, the father was trying to look what was the source, if there was any sort of animal around the house, and they put all sorts of traps, tried to find for people, and they couldn't find any sort of explanation for all that phenomenon that was happening. Then the girls decide to talk to it, say, okay, Mr. Splitfoot, let's see, follow my lead. If I do 2, you do 2. And then they realized that he was really following, and then they start to talk to him. And for everybody, it was a really awkward situation because they were from a very strict church that believed there was a devil, so they're not supposed to be doing that. And even though when they start to talk to the spirit, they start to develop also the typology with the letters, and then that spirit could tell the history of himself. He was a salesman that went to that house one night and was invited to pass the night, and he was killed by the owner of the house. And then they told that story. They start to investigate a little bit further. They found the maid that used to work in the house, and she confirmed that she remembered of a salesman going there, but the salesman just disappeared mysteriously on the following morning. So they also went to the basement, excavated. They found a little object in the hair, but it was only a few years later that they really could find the whole body and confirm that someone was really buried at the house. For the girls, was a really challenging situation due to their religious. They were classified like they were like excommunicated from their church because they're not supposed to be doing that. When they grow up, because one of the sisters was Kate, the other was Margaret. So Margaret received some financial incentive to say that everything was a lie, and then she went to public to say that, but then she regret, and then she went back to say that it wasn't a lie. And in the moment that she said that, the phenomena happened also, and the people that were there could see. And all these phenomena also only happen in the presence of the sisters. So they were the mediums that were allowing that spirit to be able to do all these sorts of events. And this brought a lot of attention, and people start to ask themselves, but it's still in a silly manner. It's still in a way that, gossip or some more trivial things. They were not really look into the intelligence and all the possibilities behind this sort of events, until our beloved Allan Kardec started to investigate. So, Hippolyte Léon Denise Eymael, he was a French teacher of mathematics, language, physics, astronomy, and philosophy, and he was also a researcher of magnetism, that some people associate in the beginning that the shaking tables and turning talking tables were like some sort of magnetism event. He was a study of the magnetism as well. And he was born on October 3rd, 1804, in the city of Lyon. And he was from a Catholic family. He was a disciple of Pestalozzi, that is one of the modern, that brought to us the modern pedagogy. And he was married to Amélie Gabrielle Baudot. During his sojourn in Switzerland, while he was attending the Pestalozzi Institute, one of the things that Pestalozzi taught to him and to his students was that true religion was nothing more than morality. So he already has this thing. He wasn't someone that was attached to the rituals and this sort of stuff. He already knew that the moral of an individual speaks more about him than his religion, than the faith that he says that he's professing. And there is such an important step that could bring him in the way that he started to develop the Spiritism, right? So, at first he wasn't interested. Everybody was doing this sort of events and he wasn't looking into it. Until Mr. Fortier, there was one of his friends, told Kardec, I'm already doing some research. I would like to show you material, but I'd like you to invite to come with me and see for yourself one of these events, of these talking tables, because I'm telling you, it's something really extraordinary. You need to look into it. And that's when he decided to participate in a few sessions, and he was intrigued. While everybody was doing these silly questions, doing this thing, he started to notice there's something with a lot of potential behind these phenomena. He then decided to ask himself, right, as a piece of furniture, how could it move by itself? All these sort of questions. And he was a scientist. He was the kind of guy that he was looking there, and he was trying to find anything that could show that there was a fraud. He was really looking into all the details. And that really intrigued him. Like, I can't see any sort of explicable reason now that could convince me that this is some fraud. I can see with my own eyes that this is happening in front of me, and there is something behind that, right? And he witnessed all these manifestations, and he started to take a look, okay, so there is an intelligence behind it, and that's what I need to look for. If there is any spirit behind it, there is an intelligence there. That's what we should be looking for. Okay, so what is really good about it is that then we can realize that the Spiritism was born in real life events. Okay, he started to make the questions. What brings us what? The philosophical aspect of the Spiritism. Because everything started off, how do we explain all these things that are happening now? That was his first question. We need to find an explanation. We need to bring some sort of answer. People need to understand what this sort of phenomena is, why it's happening now, why here, why now, and how does it happen. So imagine, as I told before, to start his research was a very long and boring, was typology, so 1 knock for A, 2 for B, 3 for C. So to the sort of questions that he was doing took an eternity to get an answer. It's not something fun. Imagine we're there, you want, like, if they're going to say, like, a spirit would take at least a good 2-3 minutes for one word, and it's not only himself, he needs to have everybody taking notes to make sure that all of them are getting the same word until they could form a sentence. So imagine of the long process, especially in the beginning, with all this limit, and it took forever, but he was so intrigued that he thought, okay, I really need to get, because he got to the conclusion that there is an intelligent cause behind that. There is more than meets my eye. And if they have the ability to communicate and move share tables, what else they up to? What else they are doing? When they are not moving tables, what they are doing? Where are they? Do you know? So, and all the other questions that came after, like, okay, if they are there and they say they are discarnate spirits, means that when I die, I'll become one of them. So, like, the fact that my physical body dies doesn't mean that my spirit will die. So we are talking about immortal life here. And what kind of, imagine, his mind, all know this sort of questions came in at the same time. And he there, typology. Okay, let's go, another question. And the typology going on. Okay, so we can see that he was really the one that came with that. He was a discerning man. He was chosen for this high mission to be the codifier of the Spiritism exactly because of his nobility, the nobility of his feelings, and for his elevated character, both of which are connected to solid intelligence. So he had the moral, right? And he had this elevated character, and combined with his scientific skills, his solid intelligence, that was a perfect combination to start what we know today as the Spiritism as a doctrine, right? So he couldn't let himself be taken by fads, and as a student of human magnetism, he believed that all of the phenomena produced by the spiritualist movement could be connected to the people who are involved and not to any possibility of spirit intervention. So at that point, he already realized it's not the spirit only. This is connected to the people surrounding these tables. There is a sort of connection that he started already to make there, right? And one of the things that he told about this initial thing was I got from the posthumous work of him, when he says, I noticed in those apparent trivialities in the past time, there was made of the phenomena that something was serious as a revelation of new laws which I started to study. I understood the seriousness of the investigation I was about to undertake. I saw in those phenomena the key to obscure and controversial problems of humanity's past and future solutions. I had been looking for my entire life. It was necessary then to conduct myself with the greatest circumspection and not carelessly. I should be positive and not idealist so as to not be deceived. So imagine his feeling when he really realized the complexity and the magnitude of all the work that he was starting. I can't even imagine, really, because he was already, imagine that, he was already a professor, he was already a scientist, he was well known in the community, he has a whole career, he has a family, he has a reputation on the table. And when he started to realize the importance, when he says here, to obscure and controversial problems of humanity's past and future, he couldn't understand the whole thing. It's like this big puzzle that started to find the right pieces inside his head. And there was really, he knows, like, I can just walk away. I can't. I need to embrace this. And he really went for it, right? As we can see also in the Gospel of John, he was coming with the Consoler, right? When they say the world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. But the Consoler, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of all things I have said to you. And that's what he embraced. He went back there, he read this, and he did, okay, this is the Consoler. This is the puzzle that I need to put together and make people understand. Because he thought as well, if this is important to me, and his wife as well, because you also need to think that besides being a scientific, he was from a very traditional family. But besides that, he was able to marry to a woman that was older than him, what showed that he wasn't one really attached to the rules of society. So he married to a spouse that was older than him, and the sort of the relationship they developed was one that he shared with her all these thoughts, all his ideas, and as partners they did this together. She was an important piece as well. Amelie was beside him, and he was sharing with her all these ideas, and she was supporting his decisions. Be sure she was also a very important person in the whole Spiritist thing. So we need to think that when he decided to bring this Consoler, when we read the Bible and everything matches, was the moment that he realized, right? He needs to come and put this piece together. And how can we do it? Because when we talk about Jesus, everybody should think about Christian religion. But another thing that he saw in this whole thing is that we need to bring people to understand that the relationship between them and God doesn't need any sort of intermediary. It's them directly with God. And that's what Spiritism also brought to us. And his idea since the beginning was to establish that your relationship is with God. You don't need any sort of intermediary. Always depend on you. And this is the sort of responsibility that he embraced. And he thought, if it's important to me, it will be important to others. And that's how he really started to build this foundation for the Spiritism. From his first contact with the Spiritists in 1855, Kardec spent 14 years organizing Spiritism, which he would finish on March 31st, 1869, the day that he passed away to do an aneurysm. At first, in order to receive the answers with the spirits about the risk for the communications, Kardec used the mechanism called a basket spinning. So he had these two mediums, Julie and Caroline Bowdy, and he had this basket spinning, pointing the letters. But after a while, then the sisters were able to really put their hands on it and start the psychography, what really helped a lot. As a scientist, he was really concerned about collecting all this information in a scientific way. So when he was doing it, he was following the necessary guidelines for common sense and rationality. The same questions posed to spirits through French mediums were also submitted to other mediums in several parts of Europe and America. This was done so that the statements the spirits made carried the needed credibility. So he was always receiving these answers and comparing the answers between them to make sure they are corroborate each other before they could add. I imagine that when we see the 5 books, the amount of material that he had should be like 1,000 times more that he need to read. Like the same message that we read once there, he received it from 5, 6 different mediums. And to make sure there was no interference, the mediums could not meet each other. They only meet Kardec. So they are not able to talk to each other. They don't even know who was the other mediums. They don't know. Everything was sent to Kardec so he could compile all these answers and put them together, right? As a result, it was understood that if the answers were the same, they had come from the same spirit source. So there was his common sense, okay? And let us highlight that whenever the questions and answers were of moral significance, they were compared to the gospel. So besides receive that answers, when they have this moral significance, he also went to, let's see the gospel, let's see if it's matching with Jesus said, then we can accept. So he really put a lot of work into it, right? And the gospel of Jesus is considered by followers of Spiritism to be the absolute model of the good conduct. So since the beginning, Jesus was the model. So when Kardec started all of this, he had to keep Jesus as the reference in mind, was surround his figures, surround his teachings, that everything was happening, right? And everything that was not considered in that guideline, wasn't following his guidelines, then he considered it to be the personal opinion of the communicating spirit, regardless of how well known that spirit may be. So sometimes the results came with a signature of some well-known spirit, but he ignored that if it wasn't really having matching all the other one, right? And the same he did with all the books, right? The books that are the base code of the Spiritist doctrine, they also follow this same sort, the sort that he put all the questions. Since the Spirit's book, going to the other ones, he did in a sort of way to tell us a story and bring from the beginning and evolving and going to the end. And the book also follows the same systematic critical analysis from the Spiritist book. So he was sort of, let me show to you how it's done, in a way that he was here to teach us to fish. If today something happened, internet dies, a zombie apocalypse, we lose all the books, we lose all the content that we know, we have no gospel, no spirit book, everything is gone, we know how to do it again. He teaches, and we know by heart now, if necessary. If we lose everything, okay, we don't know. I never memorized that questions, because the Spirit's book is a hard book. It's not the kind of book that you sit and hear it for the cover to cover like a piece of cake. It's a book that you need to digest, you need to process. You go back several times until you really, when you think, I truly understand this time, something happened, okay, I didn't. Let's go back. You know, so it's a sort of thing, but he teaches through all his methodology a way that if I'm not here, they will be able to do it again. I'm teaching them also how to do it again. So when we read his work, we need to keep that in mind, right? So for the new ideas, new words are needed. That's why in the introduction of the Spiritist book, he says, I didn't put there. So he told that to avoid the confusion, he decided to create the term Spiritism, because spiritualism was already used, and he decided that why give another meaning to a word that is already used? We need to create a new one to really separate and don't have any sort of confusion. Even these sort of details, he was looking to it. Like when he goes to question God. He doesn't ask who is God. What is God? He opens. He opens in a way that the answer could be anything. He's not assuming that God is. When we ask who, we are thinking there is someone. We are assuming someone comparable to us. When he goes to what, he's really opening your mind for any sort of possibilities, right? So in 1858, during the Code's development, Kardec started to publish also the monthly magazine called the Spiritist Magazine. There is also, if you go through the Spiritist Magazine, also bring the same logic from the books. So if you consider like another book, another very important source for the Spiritist doctrine will be the Spiritist Magazine, right? And several times the magazine served as a forum for doctrinal debates, because then he published the magazine, then he received the critics, and he was replying and learning and teaching and doing everything there. He was always opening himself for this sort of criticism. It's not the kind of work that he did closed in a room for himself and his wife, and when it's beautiful and red, I'm going to put up there. He used the magazine to do this work and receive the criticism during the process. Imagine how challenging it is, because you are learning, and you receive critics, and you need to be very strong in your faith to make sure you are following the guidelines that you are committed since the beginning, right? So, I would like to talk a little bit about the books, each one of them. So first is the Spirit's book, was published on April 18, 1857, and it is the main book of the Spiritism. It can be considered Spiritist's backbone because it supports all other doctrinal books, because he did all the questions in this one. He will mention in the other one, but this one is really the one. As I told, it's not an easy book to read all at once, but it's a very important book to read. All of us that we like Spiritism, sometimes we start, I know a lot of people, especially when I was in Brazil, that started to know about Spiritism through to the romances, right? Violeta da Janela, and other romances that got really public. And sometimes when they, okay, but this is the 5 books, the base, you should read when they start, but it's so boring! Like, that book, the romance, I read like that. This one, oh my gosh, it's so complex. Look at these words. I don't even know what it means. Do you know? But it's work. It's a part. If we really want to enlighten ourselves in a way that we can say, we are spiritists, we are here to work, we are here to learn, we really need to face this sort of challenges as well, right? So it's very important. It's the backbone. Okay, it is divided in 4 parts. The first calls the spirit word, ethical laws, hopes, and solace. So these 4 parts comes in a sequence, so you can read and understand. But as I told, he really decided to go this way because it was the most logical way for him. And when you read, you see that makes sense, the sort of questions. And during the Spiritist book, you're going to see that he does the same question different ways. Sometimes the Spirit, as I told you before, as I already told you, they always sometimes, they know that it's part of his job as well. They need to answer. And they sometimes, so some of the questions in the beginning, you're going to see the repetitions with different, he tried to trick a little bit, change a word or what, but it's there. And even though these questions there you think, oh, he's just repeating himself, the answer will bring some sort of another enlightenment. And even the question that he did each one of them with a purpose in his mind. What brings us also to the intention of our actions. Look how intention he was doing all this work. He had a very clear purpose in his mind. Sometimes when we do things on our own, we say, oh, I did that mistake. It wasn't my intention. That's not my intention. You need to try to straighten up yourself and say, what is my intention? You need to ask yourself. You need to have an intention when you're doing something. If you're doing something and got a completely different outcome, okay, there's something very wrong going on in the way that you decide to do your stuff. So when we look to correct examples, is that he was intentioning, right, Daniel? he had the intention to do the work, and he went for it, right? So he was always asking the superior spirits who were responsible for bringing the Spiritism to humanity. Where is God? Where do we come from? Where we are going? What are we doing on earth? These are some of the questions answered by the Spirit of Truth group. So he tried to really explore everything he had in mind. Of course, Spiritism is also the sort of the doctrine that it brings to us. Also, the idea of update. It's not only the 5 books. We also receive books through the Valdo, to Raul Teixeira, to some other incredible mediums, because we need to adapt ourselves for the new challenges. When we see like planetary transition from the Valdo is bringing more, like Indigo Kids, he's always bringing more information that we need to add. It's not something, okay, it's these 5 books and that's it. No, these books, they already have questions that was only answered now. Like, just a few years ago, they really confirmed the dark matter. And in the Spiritist book, there is questions that they already answer, of course, in a way that in that time people could understand a little, because they were not ready for all the knowledge that was coming. There's a lot of things that we now makes a lot more sense for us that was in the beginning for them, right? Even for Kardec as a scientist was really, really challenge for him. So after the Spiritist book, I thought the first time I was really said, oh, will come the gospel. No, it's the Medium's book. I was like, oh, he tricked me. It's the Medium's book. But the Medium's book was published on January 15, 1861, and it contains the benefits and dangers of mediumship. So see, he was prepared, he's coming. So I think that the Spiritist book, there is this lot of science, also the moral questions, the philosophic, always the questions also about faith. But when he goes to the Medium's book, okay, he's also trying to explain, okay, I did the Spiritist book, these are the first answers, but how do we get? How these people got these communications? You guys need to know as well. Because as I told, he was teaching us to fish. Okay, so how does it work? How the mediums work? How is this communicability between the incarnate world and the discarnate world? And it's very, very important, because we always know the mediums, they are able to see, to talk, but each of us receive influence. And not only from discarnate spirits, from incarnate spirit as well. So it's very important to us to understand this sort of mechanism, how these relationships, this change of energy works, right? In the book Evolution to Words, they explain to us that each cell in our body is like has its own conscience. So sometimes when you feel lonely, you need to be in solidarity with these little cells. Like, I'm lonely. Okay, you have billion cells in your body, 1 trillion. Okay, I don't think you're lonely, because each of these, it's the sort of things that you read, and I get like, what? Do you have conscience? That's crazy, and that keeps coming. So when you see the Medium's book and you see the sort of influence and the way it talks about relationships. Because at the end, it's this sort of influence is between the relationships, the kind of frequency we establish for ourselves that keep attracting sometimes that bad stuff that we think, I don't deserve this, again, not me. But they are there, and we have the knowledge there, right? And then after the Medium's book, that's when comes the gospel. That was from April 15, 1864. This book can be understood as a moral part of the Spiritism. So when you talk about the faith aspect, we can see more there. But as always, he was putting Jesus as the model. So he's always put like the Jesus passage and the comments from the Spirits, trying to enlighten even more, and sometimes trying to make us understand that not everything that Jesus said was literally that we need to open our minds for the other possibilities. At that time, he needed to talk that way, but he was trying to teach, and now we can understand in different ways, in a more loving, understanding, non-judgmental way, right? And then after the gospel, we have heaven and hell. And if people like gossip, heaven and hell is the gossip one. Because when he tells all the stories about discarnate spirits, what happened in their lives, the jealousy, the king, who was all this sort of sad stories, but sometimes not that sad. And then you can realize now, why he put this now? Because now when I see these stories, I can understand a little better about the law of justice. Because when I ask in the Spirit's book about consequence, they give me that answer, that I need to face all the consequences in this life, in other life. And then when they go to heaven and hell, to see all sorts of examples that brothers and sisters went through this difficult path, you need, even though sometimes, but you need to understand that this is a consequence of previous acts. And we are need to face sooner or later, right? And then we come to Genesis. And the thing about Genesis, the reason is very interesting is that, imagine, I think that when he did Until Heaven and Hell, he was going in a very growing way. And then he thought, okay, with all this knowledge, what should I do again? I need to start over. And then he goes to Genesis. Genesis, he brings all of it together in a even more, in a didactic way, but people think that Genesis is too complex, but was his idea to compile, let's go to the beginning again, and let's try to explain everything, and let's end up with Jesus again. So that's Genesis. And it's a beautiful book. We have all these books in our library to sell. I strongly suggest all of you, Wednesday and Thursday we have the study here where we can go deep. In the Spiritist book, we go question by question. We have this group, Anna is here, she's part of the group, Sandra, Joe. We have the Gospels on Tuesday. Always look also to understand in a deeper way all that beautiful passage that Jesus brought to us. So this is the foundation, right? And then we go back to our first question. Okay, so how can we understand that? Is really philosophy? Is really science? Is really faith? What is it? So what the Spiritism is bringing to us? So we think that philosophy is new fields of knowledge, its first aspect. The philosophy focuses on the moral consequences that occurs between the relationships of the spiritual world with the physical worlds. So was all the sort of questions that he did in the beginning. So I think that when he started the Spiritism, the first thing that he thought was about this philosophical aspect. So who are these people? They are intelligent, what they're doing there, all these sorts of questions that came in the beginning. And he used the logic and the reasoning to do the foundations of science and of faith. And as follows, he brought to us through the philosophy the aspects of the existence of God, and also the constant and infinitive progress of the intelligence principle through the word and through appropriate bodies. So the great questions about the soul remained under very well veil of mystery and allowed for the questioning of dogmatic philosophical principles. Because when you think about doctrine actually is like this barrier of knowledge. The doctrine doesn't have dogmas. It's all this sort of knowledge that he put together to brought us the answers. And he never told, he was someone open to all these questions and to the criticism, as I told before. He built this work with the criticism and with the opinions of everybody. And he was really analytic in the way that he systematic put these things together. So the philosophical aspect, I think, was the first one that emerged on his head with all the questions when he started to see all that phenomena, right? And also brought to us the fundamentals of the Spiritism. And they are the existence of God, the existence of spirits and their survival after death, reincarnation, the plurality of inhabited worlds, communicability with the material world. So we can observe then that some of those principles are in all of the Christian religions. In other words, Catholicism as well as Protestantism and all other religions with a basis in the teachings of Jesus and a belief in God, proposes in some way the existence of a spiritual life. Spiritism is a philosophy because it investigates the true nature of life by answering questions as where do we come from, what are we, where are we going. We are not attached to any sort of mythology or mysticism. Everything has a clear explanation. Everything has a clear answer. We are looking for this answer since the beginning of Spiritism, right? And every doctrine that offers an explanation of life is a philosophy. Spiritism is a philosophical doctrine, but it has the religious consequences, as does every spiritual philosophy, because it touches unavoidably upon the basis of all religions: God, the soul, and the future life. The science. So the scientific method is its second aspect. Science. The Spiritists give us the basis, the knowledge of the invisible world in the center of which we live. So it brings us in a way that we need to understand that there is more than we can see. And that is the real thing. What we have, the things that we see, is just something that we need to go through, but it's not the absolutely truth. The truth itself is beyond that. It's beyond our experience here. It's like Erica was so excited, like 7 other similar words, similar to word, were discovered now. And everybody still thinks, oh, words, but we can't, like, God, His creation, He's like a painter, and we are part of His painting, but there is life everywhere in this universe, everywhere. And it's something that the Spiritism told us since the beginning. Since the Spiritist book, he's saying there, oh, there is life in other world. This is not the sort of question. Of course there is. There is life everywhere, right? So science without Spiritism is unable to explain also certain specific phenomena. The same applies to Spiritism. It would not have had credibility without the confirmation by science. So it's a strong relationship that sometimes people still see, oh, science and religion, they are opposites, they are antagonists, when it's not true. Spiritism brought them together in a way that they are inseparable. The way that Kardec did his work, he was really committed to following these scientific, these clear guidelines, especially because in science, in order to prove and to do research, you need to make sure that your experiment could be replicated. As I told, when you do something, someone else will replicate, and if it doesn't come with the same results, that's why people get shitty on science sometimes. They pretend, they put fake results, and someone else in another country go replicate, okay, this is not the results that are coming. And other people go, but when he did that, he did in a way that, yes, you can do. If you start all over again, if necessary, as I told you, the zombie apocalypse is going on, everything's gone, you can do again. You can replicate what I did, right? And then we come to the last aspect. There is the faith, right? And it's kind of, the Spiritism is not a constitutive religion. It has no cult, no rites, no temples. And among its followers, no one person is designated as head in charge of priests. Like sometimes, oh, Denise is going to give a lecture. It's not something that I feel comfortable doing, but it's a way that I try to learn more. When I come here, I try to share the things that I learn, and it's the best part of reading all these things is that I have a toddler at home, and he reminds me of that, and makes me wonder like a kid again. Like when I read his stories, I'm kind of, oh my gosh, how good! Like, I try to think and put myself in his place in the 18th century there, thinking about all these sort of things, receiving all that complicated answer about topics that he wasn't an expert, and he needed to look a little bit deeper into it, probably talk to teachers from the university, and doing these questions that people could look at him, why are you asking? Like, I never thought about it before. And it's so important that in our faith, it's a faith that allowed us to ask ourselves and keep looking for the right answer, for these answers that we have deep inside. Because when Kardec brought all the divine laws, that he was able to name these divine laws for us, we already knew it. Because as I don't remember the author, but say, you only know that someone, you consider someone as a wise person because you have that wisdom inside of you. So when that person says that word, it resonates inside of you because you have that already inside of you. So we have all these answers inside of us. We just need to ask ourselves to bring them out. And it's not only about when I think sometimes question our faith, but our intention, as I told. What's my intention here? When I come to the Spiritist every Sunday, I play like, oh, I'm getting our bonus when I discarnate. But it is a lot more. When I sometimes say, oh, it's cold, it's hard to go to the Spiritist Center today, it's snowing. But I can tell you something. When I come here, I know the energy, I know the spirits working here. They are doing such a work in each one of you now. We do the healing paths in the beginning, but you guys are receiving treatment since the moment you are here. And when you are in your home, that you do a prayer, you are also receiving this treatment, you are also receiving this attention. So it's so important for us that the Spiritism teaches that faith and questioning, they need to be going side by side. The Spiritism told us that you need to understand that you cannot just nod your head and accept things. And I remember my grandmother when she told me that, I remember when she was very Catholic and I went to the church with her all the time. I was like, oh, this father, he's repeating himself sometimes so much. And she looked at me, oh, you're very lucky that you know what he's talking. When I was a little kid, my father made me go to the church, and the father was still in Latin. He did the things, everything in Latin. I couldn't understand anything, and I need to stay there like, that was hard. At least this one you can understand. Don't complain. You know, so she came from a generation and is still very, that you need to go. She told that she never knew anything, that only when she grew up that the father starts to speak in Portuguese, that's when she started to understand. But even when she told, like, when she did the first Eucharist, even the teacher reading the things of the first Eucharist, she told that she read to them in Latin, and nobody knew what she was talking about. And the kids were just there, staring at her. And in my mind, I was like, but this isn't acceptable. How could, like, my poor Catholic, the person that was teaching me, I did so many questions to her. And she was kind of, okay, Denise, okay, next, I give you next time. But yes, it's part of our nature to ask ourselves. That's what makes us evolve. If you just, oh, that's the way it is, I can't change anything, let's accept, and no, it's not that. Spiritism brings us this resignation, but in a way that you need to accept, in a way that you are facing consequence. That's it. But not in a way that you can change. Even though you are facing consequence, you still can keep working harder to make things easier, not only for yourself, but for the others. And that is the most thing that makes the Spiritism be really out of this world. Right? And by looking at the history, we can really understand there is a very practical and focused. He was really looking deep in our daily life's problems. That was the first thing. Like, he was really, okay, here, behind all these events, there is an answer for our past and our future. And it's something that really brings us together in a way that we are working still every day here. And we are still receiving all this knowledge. And we really need to educate ourselves in a way that we can make a difference, not only for us, but for many others, brothers and sisters that needs still to open their minds, and especially their hearts. These days we see how emotions are important, how schools are more interested in develop not only the intellectual of our kids, but also the emotional intelligence of these little ones. They need to understand How do I do with my anger? What do I do? You cannot just pretend you don't have it. You need to work with it, right? And to add, I brought this thing from Bezerra de Menezes, where he inspires us a little bit more. And he says, Spiritism holds its essential aspects in tribal configuration. Thus, no one should be restricted in his or her desire to work and produce. Let those inclined toward the sciences to cultivate them in their dignity. Those who devote themselves to philosophy to ennoble its postulates, and those who consecrate themselves to religion to turn divine its aspiration. Yet, above all, it is necessary that the basis of Spiritism remain in everyone and everything, so that we do not lose the balance at the foundation upon which the organization is constructed. Bezerra de Menezes. Thank you.
Don't go away. Thank you, Denise. Let's see if there's any questions.
Questions.
No questions.
Good.
Good.
I was praying for that
Good.
before. That means that my prayers.
So what's the answer to your first question? What is Spiritism? Is it...
All of the above.
Okay. So it is all of the above. And sometimes it can be confusing. And every year when we pick the themes of the month, and this month we're talking about spiritualist education, we always make sure that we go back to basics, because that is the foundation. That is what supports everything that we believe and what the practices and the behavior that we're inclined to do. Often, as you move past your Spiritism 101, we might tend to forget some of those bases. It was a very good choice from Denise for the opening reading that talked about the thread that kind of brings all of this together, which is the truth. In a period of our society where truth is under attack, where we don't know who to believe in, we need tools. We need ways that we can make our decisions. 90% or more of the information you receive is not what you experience yourself, but coming from other sources. Whether it is what's happening in countries in war, what's happening in politics, what's happening in everything. We get a storm of information driven to us by incalculable number of sources. Who do we believe? What is the truth? Kardec faced that problem from the very first day he set himself up to try to figure out what was serious and what was just entertainment in the communications with the spirits. The Medium's book provides a whole chapter in understanding the credibility of the speakers to you, whether they are mediums incarnated or spirits disincarnated. So let's not forget that we are here for the basic purpose of trying to learn the truth. Because it's the truth that will give us the certainty, will give us the rational faith, and will give us the energy and the motivation to apply its teachings. Thank you very much, Denise. It's always entertaining. We are now ready to receive our pass. We still have to do this before we can go into the Lunch and Learn. Thank you for everyone who's been watching online. It's always a great pleasure to have you here. Please send your questions. Please watch us Wednesdays and Thursdays as well when we broadcast live for our Introduction of Spiritism study groups. Thank you.